Epic Mickey 2 is perhaps one of the worst games I've ever played. Hands down. One of the absolute worst games I have ever played, ever, in my history of gaming, for nearly like 15 years or something ridiculous like that. Now, bit of context, I recently finished this game as a co-op thing with Alex, my partner, and we were basically trying to 100% it together. She has one achievement left, which requires a second playthrough. I have 3 achievements left, one of which also requires the second playthrough, the other 2 of which I should have got while playing with her. Now, this game is bad in general. Like, it's just bad in general. Obviously, I'm going to go into why that is in a second. But my biggest issue with it at the moment is we played this as a co-op thing. So she was Mickey. I played as Oswald, because I was player 2. And we've been playing it on and off for about 3 weeks. Whenever I go over her house, we play split screen. And there's an achievement for getting all of the collectible pins in the game, of which there are 176. And there's an achievement to rescue all of the gremlins, of which I believe there are 9 or something like that. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of side quests. It's a lot of back and forth more. It's a lot of just a lot of gaming, which is not enjoyable because the game is just so aggravatingly tedious and just annoying. And when we finally got the last pin, I did not get the achievement, nor did I get the achievement for the final gremlin either. The reason for that is because I'm playing as player 2, as Oswald, there's a pin at the very beginning of the game that only Mickey can get, because it's a single player section before Oswald is introduced about 15 minutes afterwards. So I have that pin because I got that achievement to get the first pin because I did a separate playthrough where I just played the beginning of the game to get the same stuff that Alex had, and then we just went co-op from there. With the Gremlin one, we have no idea why it didn't unlock at all. It just didn't give me the achievement whatsoever. It just did not unlock. There's no way to backtrack. There's no way to reload an older save because this game doesn't do that. It only reloads last checkpoint. So once it saves, which it does quite frequently, you're just stuck. So we looked into it, and long story short, it now means we have to do, or at least I have to do, another full-on, like, perfect playthrough to get all of the pins again and all of the gremlins. So essentially the 3 weeks we've spent on the game, we now have to do the same thing twice. That's not including the last achievement we need to get, which requires its own separate playthrough anyway, because of how the decisions you make throughout the game affect it. So already the game's given me a massive reason to hate it, because I'm having to waste time on it now that I don't want to waste, trying to get 2 achievements I was robbed of because I've done the requirements. The game is just so bad and janky that it didn't give them to me. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, because the one thing an achievement hunter like myself, and for those of you that are achievement hunters, you relate to this, the one thing we hate is obviously when we do the requirements for an achievement and we don't get said achievement and there's not an easy fix. There's nothing worse than having to redo hours upon hours of progress just because an achievement didn't unlock or didn't pop. And it's the first time I think I've ever had an issue with an Xbox 360 game not giving me an achievement. Xbox, like anything after the Xbox One, sometimes yes, because it's all like done on the cloud and stuff. Anything with 360 has always been instant, like even if you're offline. Anyone who played on 360 will know this. So I've never had a problem with it. And this is the first time I've actually had an issue with it, and it just had to be this game of all games. Now, the reason I say this game is absolute garbage, and I say it in the title, unless I've changed it by the time I've recorded the video, is the game itself is just outright bad in every single shape, way, and form. It's just all across the board a bad game. It starts off kind of charming. Nice little cutscenes of like, ooh, you know, this is the kind of premise, and the first kind of level is kind of quite chill. You know, seems kind of geared towards like kids, because obviously it's Mickey Mouse. And after that first level, everything just becomes annoying. There's so much back and forth with backtracking and going back and forth to areas. There's so much janky physics and just all out just annoying platforming because the game is so janky. The camera is your biggest enemy because the camera is absolutely horrific in this game. In some areas, it's too close and it won't move, and in other areas, it's too far away and won't move, and in some areas, it'll just randomly spin for no reason, even though you're not touching right stick, and it'll just decide it needs to correct itself for literally no reason, causing you to miss a jump to then have to redo the last 5 minutes of gameplay again for the 15th time because the camera decided it would be a great idea to look left instead of just staying where it is. And overall, the game is just boring. The platforming is very mediocre. Playing as Oswald is far more fun than playing as Mickey because Oswald has a higher jump and can hover. So I got to experience that for pretty much the entire playthrough. Alex had to play as Mickey, whose jump is pathetic and the double jump is worthless. And there were so many times where I had to try and do some sections for her because the platforming was just absolutely doing her head in. And playing as Oswald is just so much easier. The actual combat, in quotation marks, is very kind of stale. It's basic for the most part. It's shoot enemy with paint or thinner, depending on what ending you want and kind of what you care about. But it's usually player 2 jump on this thing or zap this thing, player 1 do this, and it gets really boring after a while. Like there are a multitude of enemies in the game, but for the most part, the kind of gist remains the same throughout. And the story, like this, I just don't care about the story. Like it feels so boring. Like I'm not interested at all. We finished the game and we were both like, we didn't even care. We were just like grateful that it was over. We just didn't have to play this game ever again. But I just don't understand how this game is like apparently so many people's childhood. Like I was looking into this game, trying to figure out like, was this game like big back in the day? Did it do really well? The answer is no, because the studio that made it shut down a year later. But like I've like looked up this on YouTube and stuff, and loads of people are like, oh, this game was my childhood, it was so good, and I'm like, what? Like if I had played this as a kid, I would have given up within 30 minutes because I would have been like, I don't have the patience for this. And the other problem I have with this game is nothing is clear. Like we followed a perfectionist guide on YouTube to make sure we didn't miss anything, even though I'm gonna have to do the exact same thing now again because the game robbed me of my achievements. And without that guide, we would not have had a single clue on where we were supposed to go or what we were supposed to do, because the game just does a terrible job of explaining where you are, what you're doing, where you're meant to be going. It kind of just leaves you at its whim to figure it out. But because the game is so frustrating and not fun to play, it's not fun to wander around trying to figure it out. Games that are fun and enjoyable and you like the gameplay of, you probably don't mind wandering around trying to find your objective and stumbling upon other things along the way. In this game, because this game is trash, I just wanted to get it over with. And it still took like 3-4 weeks because there was just so much shit to do. And now we've got to do that all over again because the game just did not give me my achievements. But I don't know. I thought, like, when I went into this game and Alex was like, oh, I played this as a kid, I never finished it, you know, do you want to co-op it? And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, what's the harm? It's a Mickey Mouse game, right? Like, you look at it, Epic Mickey 2, co-op platformer, can't be that hard. It's a Mickey Mouse game. It's probably for kids. Like, I can't envision anyone, like, I just don't understand why this game is so aggravating. Like, I cannot see a child ever enjoying this because it's just horrendous. And Alex literally said to me, like, this is probably why I never finished it as a kid, because it's just so confusing. And obviously back then, you wouldn't YouTube things, because that just wasn't how things were done back then when we were kids. But it's just bad. Like, the platforming is bad. The camera is bad. The story is bad. The characters, some of the writing feels so bad. Like, some characters are written, like, okay. Some characters are just annoying. The graphics, they don't hold up at all, considering this game is from 2012. The graphics don't hold up at all. The game looks pretty terrible. Like, I know it's meant to be like a cartoon feel, but it just looks like the graphics just look really, really bad. The only thing I liked about this game, believe it or not, was when you went in the film reels and you did the 2D scroller platformer bits. Those bits were nice because they were based on older kind of Mickey Mouse cartoons, so each one had its kind of own individual style, aesthetic, and flair. So I liked that, because it was kind of going back to things from like the 70s, 80s, 90s, whenever those films were relevant. And you kind of got to see a kind of a glimpse of Disney's past and of Mickey's past. Those were cool. The music scores in those were really good. And, you know, the aesthetic and how they looked was a far above the kind of general open world sections that the game has you normally trekking through. The only downside is those 2D sections usually last about 2-3 minutes and then they're done. They're very short levels, they don't last very long, which is a shame because they were my favourite part of the entire game. Like, those are the bits I like doing the most because they felt fun. But overall, it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't like the gameplay. I don't like the combat. I hate the camera. I hate the camera with a burning vengeance because there were so many occasions where the camera either messed me about or Alex, and we ended up falling or dying and having to redo another area again and again and again because the camera just would not, like, do what we wanted it to do. The game's confusing, like, knowing where to go naturally. I would never have been able to do this game without a guide because it's just so unclear. There are so many quests to do and none of them are fun, none of them are enjoyable. They all just feel really tedious and very back and forth. It's just like, go here, do this, go here, do this, go here, come back, go there. And there are so many pitfalls you can fall into to fail the quests as well, which is why we followed a perfectionist guide. And this guide was 52 videos long. So that should give you an idea of, like, how finicky this game is to 100%. And I'm going to have to now sit down and redo those 52 videos again because I was robbed of 2 achievements, which just adds salt to the wound. Like, not only was it not an enjoyable experience anyway, I've got to suffer through it all over again now because the game didn't give me 2 achievements, and then we have to do a 3rd run for the other achievement you can't get doing a perfectionist playthrough. So in total, we have to do 3 playthroughs instead of 2, which is just aggravating anyway. But what's even worse is, because it's to do with the pins and the gremlins, and a lot of the pins you get from doing specific decisions and certain quests, it basically means we have to follow the perfectionist guide literally word for word all over again, like we did the first time. It's not like we can speed through it and be like, yeah, we need this, 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 and this, because there are so many pins. There are 176 pins, and they don't even do anything that interesting. You get a couple of spirits, which give you a few little buffs, but realistically, it's just, there's no point. They're just there for the sake of being collectibles. Really, the spirits don't do a whole lot to change the gameplay in any way, shape, or form. They just kind of boost what you already have. Nothing changes drastically to make the game more interesting or more fun or different and play in a different way. That stays the same. You just get, a little bit more paint, or you can throw your boomerang further, or you can do this. Nothing actually changes. Like, you get a new power. And yes, there are 4 sketches in the game, a TV, an anvil, slowing down time, and butterfly wings to lift things and float them. And that's interesting, but, like, overall, like, they don't do a whole lot. And also, the game doesn't even give them to you as part of story progression. You have to go and buy them with credits. If you don't have the credits, you can't get them. And, like, credits aren't that hard to get. But that leads me into my other issue with this game, which is the currencies. There's e-tickets, there's scrap metal, there's cloth. Then there's standard kind of gold pins, which you can trade in for the unique pins, which are the collectible ones. And I don't get why this game has so many currencies. And I don't know why those currencies are so prevalent in the main story either. There are so many sections where you need scrap metal, but if you haven't been grinding scrap metal, you can't proceed. But there's no good way to grind scrap metal other than doing loops of Mean Street North and Mean Street South, which is really boring because it's like 2 minutes aside, just breaking everything, getting like 5 scrap metal a piece, then going to the other side, doing the same, and back, forth. But most standard repairs in this game need 50 scrap metal. So that's like 10, that's like, what's that, 5 loops, 10 loops, depends on how lucky you are. Granted, there is an outfit to give you more scrap metal when you break things, but then that costs you cloth. So then you're going to need to grind cloth to get the outfit to grind the scrap metal. Then you're going to grind the scrap metal to actually progress the story. And then if you don't grind scrap metal for the next time you need it, you do the same thing all over again. It gets really, really boring, really, really repetitive, and it just feels stupid. The currencies, I feel like they're not necessary. It should have just been, here are the e-tickets. That's all you need. So you just get e-tickets, maybe the gold pins as well for getting the unique pins, fair enough. The scrap metal and the cloth, I don't even know why that's in the game as its own currency. It just shouldn't exist. Or you should have been able to use e-tickets to buy the currencies to speed it up, because me and Alex always had a surplus of a good 1,000 to 2,000 tickets, but we were never over like 200 scrap or 200 cloth. That never really happened. And it's frustrating because like there's an achievement to get all the outfits. Well, they all cost cloth. Some of them cost like 210 per item for an outfit, and each outfit is 3 items. So you can imagine the grind for that then took forever, because we had to then go and grind like fabric, to get cloth, and it just, everything is a grind, everything is tedious, everything is repetitive, nothing feels fresh, nothing feels unique, nothing is fun, and at no point throughout the game does the game change in any meaningful way. Like, yes, you get a couple of new enemies, but for the most part you deal with them in pretty much the same way every time, or you deal with them in a slightly different way, but nothing super exciting. You never get any new powers other than the 4 sketches, which are very boring as well. Oswald gets nothing. He just gets to hover, have a really big jump, and gets his electricity, which is standard at the start of the game. He gets nothing else beyond that. So player 2 gets nothing interesting for the entire run of the game. And to top it off, I can't even imagine how painful this game would be playing with an AI Oswald. Because I've seen videos of it, and there are sections in the game where Oswald has to do something, for example, electrify a power box, and he just won't. I've seen videos where people have had to wait upwards of 30 minutes because the AI is just not doing it. It's just refusing to come and do it. So I can't imagine how frustrating this game would be as a solo player dealing with an AI Oswald. And the other issue I have with it as well, there's a hacking minigame for Oswald, which I had to do because I was playing as player 2, so I was playing as Oswald. And the hacking minigame is awful. It just never works. One minute it'll work perfectly. You'll hover to the green area, game will say, yep, press A, do it again, press A, hack done. Very nice, cool. Yep, good. Other occasions, you get 30 seconds, you'll hover in the green for like 15 seconds, it'll finally register, so you can press A, but then you need a second lot of energy to complete the hack, and the game just does not register that you're hovering over the green bits. So the minigame just fails, and you have to just keep doing it again and again and again and again, and you're at the mercy of the game whether it's going to actually work as it's intended to work, or whether it's just going to break again, and you're going to have to redo it again and again and again. It just feels janky. Everything in this game feels unfinished and unpolished. It just feels like a really thrown together, like, slap bang platformer because they needed a sequel, and I'm not surprised they never went ahead with an Epic Mickey 3, because this game is terrible. Like, this game's absolutely horrendous. Like, as a summary, because otherwise I'm just going to keep ranting, to kind of summarize it very, very quickly: bad gameplay and repetitive, boring, bad, tedious gameplay. Uninspired locations that are just really boring, and I just do not care about them. A camera that absolutely hates the player for one reason or another and just goes out of its way to harm what you're trying to do rather than help. Boring enemies, boring story. Achievements are an absolute nightmare because there are so many pitfalls you can fall into and mistakes you can make. There's no option to reload checkpoints other than the last one. So if you make a mistake, you're screwed. There's no way to kind of go back further, which is really stupid. And to top it off, the game robbed me of 2 achievements. And now I have to suffer through it again for like 4 more weeks, which I hate, because I'd rather go and play something I want to play rather than having to do this to get it done. So overall, is Epic Mickey 2 The Power of 2 a good game? No. And the reason I'm making this video, I know this game came out in 2012, but obviously they remastered the first Epic Mickey, so now I think people are thinking maybe they'll get the second one. I personally think just leave it where it is. Because unless they're going to go in and do a full overhaul, and I mean a full overhaul, I'm talking graphics, massive improvement, gameplay refined big time, camera fixed, currencies made a little bit more lenient, having an actual save system instead of just shitty checkpoints, and overall just kind of introducing something new maybe, like if they go in and maybe they tweak something or maybe they add some new stuff. Like, they can't just do a remaster where they go, oh, we slightly tweaked the graphics and made it a little bit smoother, there we go, we're re-releasing it, because I think it'll do terribly, because the original is bad, so you can't just come back and just shove on a new coat of paint and then go, there we are, done, we'll re-release this now and see how it does. But overall, I personally think Epic Mickey 2 is one of the worst games I have ever played. There was literally no point in this video game I enjoyed other than the 2D platforming sections in the film reels. Downside is they only lasted 2 or 3 minutes, and after that then it was just back to the painstakingly semi-open world 3D bits, which were just always bad and never fun. Would I recommend this game? Absolutely not, unless maybe you have some form of childhood nostalgia because you played it as a kid, but I can almost guarantee you're going to go back to this game and be like, why did I ever play this as a child? What was wrong with me? Because I'm very grateful this was not a part of my childhood growing up, because this game absolutely sucks. Anyway, that's enough out of me. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments below whether you agree or whether you disagree and you think this game is really good. I'll be really interested to see what your argument actually is. As always, obviously keep things civil. There's no need to be toxic or anything like that. Even if you disagree with me, you can say that in the comments, that's fine. Obviously, just keep things respectful and civil. But genuinely, if there are people out there that disagree and think this game is like really, really good, I'm genuinely curious to see what your arguments are as to that point, because I really don't see any redeeming factors, pretty much. But that's it from me, guys. I'm going to go get this video rendered, uploaded, and ready for you guys on Friday. Hopefully I've seen some of you in the streams this week. Obviously there'll be streams next week as normal as well, and the Battlefield 3 VODs will be going up as well, so keep an eye out for those. Other than that, guys, leave a like, subscribe, and like I said, leave a comment whether you agree, disagree, and why. And I'll see you all either in one of the next streams, or I'll see you in next Friday's video. In the meantime, take care, much love, and I will see you next week. Bye bye for now.